Hello and welcome to your neighborhood show. I'm Carolyn, and the reason I started this podcast is because it actually comes from my own life's journey of growing up in Mumbai, India, in a very strong, connected neighborhood where pretty much everyone knew everyone. And then over my 22-year marriage, I inadvertently, here in Australia, I inadvertently got disconnected or isolated rather. And after my marriage breakdown, I was kind of reflecting on my life and wondering, how did I come from that strong community and connectedness, and now when I need support the most, I don't have it. And so I went on this journey of wanting to get myself supported again and build that network of support around me. And in the process of doing that, I realized that there were many others like myself, and it's everywhere. There's disconnection everywhere. And so what the podcast is about drawing out beautiful stories, amazing stories actually, of everyday amazing people from their lives at times when they felt connected as well as disconnected, and to normalize it. But then how do we then move from times when we are disconnected and feel supported again? I've been so lucky to meet some amazing people through this process, and what I've realized is when I'm intentional about getting to know somebody, I can get to know them in 3 to 4 hours. And that's been the biggest blessing for me. Our guest today is the lovely Lauren McHutchison. So welcome, Lauren.
Thank you.
And it's so lovely to have you here. And thank you for accepting my invitation.
No worries.
Lauren is actually local to Brisbane. She lives in Yeronga, a suburb away from me. And I first met Lauren in 2017 at a Maruka community choir. And since then, in the last 7 years, she's been involved in quite a few different community projects in Maruka that I've been part of. And she's also now recently, I think in the last 2 years, started your own real estate business.
Yeah, I've opened an office in Yeronga.
Yeah, you've got your own office in Yeronga. She's got her own real estate business in your office in Yeronga, and it's called Atlas Real Estate. Lauren's also got 3 gorgeous children of her own and a foster child who is from the same school as her own child. And I admire people that take on foster children, so I admire you, Lauren. Thank you for doing that. I think every child in foster care that's looked after by a foster parent is kind of saved, you know what I mean? So thank you for that. What else can I tell you about Lauren? I think that's about it. She's happily married to a lovely gentleman by the name of Chris. And something that I really love about Lauren is that through her business, she's always giving back. I really think it's important that local businesses give back to their communities. They're not just providing a service, but they also give. Community supports business and business supports community, and Lauren does that a lot, and I really love and respect that. So before I can get more carried away more, over to you, Lauren. Thank you again for being here. And my first question, as always, is tell us a little bit about your childhood. You grew up in New Zealand in a little town called Mount
Maunganui. Yeah, it's a little coastal town about 2.5 hours south of Auckland.
Yeah.
It's in the North Island. Back then, I guess, we were a small coastal town. It's definitely expanded over the last 20 years since I've been gone. But yeah, my mum and dad owned the local pharmacy, and I have twin brothers as well. So, we just had an awesome upbringing. We had a great family unit. I had a local grandparent, around the corner from us.
Your father's?
My father's grand. She's still alive. So I think she's just turned 96 this year.
Wow.
Yeah, so she's, amazing. And then I guess the extended family were all based in Wellington. Had a really, really beautiful upbringing. Great community. It was kind of a small town clique, I guess. Everyone knows everyone. And there was only a couple of pharmacies in town. So I think mum and dad were a bit known from a business perspective as well. And I guess having identical twin brothers that were 4 years older than me, everyone knew them. So I guess they naturally knew me too. But yeah.
Yeah, and did you have cousins?
So we actually didn't have any local cousins growing up. So again, my mum comes from a really large family. So she's got 4 siblings, and they've all got, decent amount of children themselves, but they were all based in Wellington. And then I had an auntie over in Canada, and then my dad only had the one brother, and they were also living, 6 hours away from where we were. So very much reliant on our friends, and I guess the friends that mum and dad had, but also our friends from school and things. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like you've had one of those magic childhoods where there's lots of, community around you, people around know each other, and being your parents being owners of a local pharmacist, they definitely interact with pretty much all the locals. So what's a fun, remember any fun memory from your childhood that you can share?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots, right? So living in a small beach town, there's kind of limited to do. If it's not the 2 weeks of the Christmas break where everyone comes to our town, there was limited of what you could do. I guess my fondest memory of hanging out with my brothers and just kind of passing time is the local neighborhood kids would meet in the alleyway that would go down to the beach. So the big kind of wide pathways that you would walk from the road down to the beach, and we'd play rugby. I was the only girl that was ever invited, and naturally I was 4 or 5 years younger than most of them. So they would constantly set me up for failure in the game. So I don't know why I continued to play, but I used to go down every week. We would go down and play. One time I remembered, being tackled and intentionally being dragged through dog poo.
Oh,
things like that.
So
was just
naughty.
But for me, I just felt like I was so included,
Yes.
and because they were all 4 years older than me, and they were all the boys' friends and whatever, and because I was the only girl, it just made me feel always just so included in that space. So that was a really cool experience. And then my dad's 40th was probably the other really cool memory I have. My parents were not big partiers, so for us to have a party at home, that we hadn't organised as kids was really unheard of, but we had an amazing time. And I just remember having such great conversations with my parents' friends. And just
How old would you have been then? Your dad was 40, so.
I should know the answer to that
Early
question.
teen, huh?
Yeah, I reckon I was like 14, maybe 13. Okay. So just at that age, we're getting intrigued and wanting to learn a bit more and, be a bit rebellious, I think. But also, we just had such awesome conversations. Like, it was really nice to feel included as, a guest at the party, but also just having conversations with adults.
Yeah.
I think as a child, you're very often kind of not part of those conversations. But I just really have a great memory of that party, of just having a great time, having an awesome conversations and just being so included. Yeah.
That's so good to hear, because I when I grew up, I remember one of my uncles, actually, he was of the firm belief that children should be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
And we used to actually be locked up in the bedroom while they would have a big party downstairs. And so it's amazing, and it's important for children to have relationships with adults, different adults, not just your mom and dad. It takes a village to raise a child. So sounds like you were raised by a village, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my parents, I couldn't fault them. They're great human beings and still are today. So
And you had there was some racing car experience. Tell me about that. I remember you.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I know I'm on recording, so, you got to be careful what I say, honestly, we used to go into illegal drag racing. So I don't know what you know about the drag racing side of things.
I don't know anything. Tell us.
The quarter mile is a real thing. So basically,
what's a quarter mile?
So I guess it's when two cars, think Grease,
right?
The movie Grease, right?
Yes.
We've got the two cars and they're in the drain and they go run and they turn around and come back.
Yeah.
Same concept, right? But illegally done in an industrial estate. So most weekends we would, and I was part of like a girls' car club that my friend and I started.
And whose cars did you use?
Well, I mean, we had really terrible ones, like first ownership sort of stuff. So I had a Suzuki Vitara, which is the little Jeep convertible.
Yes.
That was my car. My best friend Lauren, she had a little Mercedes, and we had created a girls' car club called Pink Bits. No. Yes, that's what I'm sure it was called. I better clarify with Lauren. But yeah, so we all had stickers on the back of the car. So you were part of a different like car group. And it was a real boy-dominated space, right? So we created a girls' car club.
What
So there was probably only like 10 or 15 of us at the peak.
Yeah.
But we had such a great time. And so, typically at about 11 p.m., we would know where we were going and the destination of these races that we were going to do.
This is 11.
Yeah, there could be 200 cars, that would all pull up into the industrial estate and would park all around the around the industrial estate, and then we would just do races up and down.
Oh,
and so it would be a
my
different
God.
timing, and then there'd be burnouts and everything, and then there would be I think we called them spotters, where they were waiting at the top of the street for police or sirens or lights or whatever.
My
Because
God.
naturally you'd be filmed on the commercial cameras and things. So
I'm getting excited just listening to you.
it was so much fun. I mean, so dangerous. And now I look back with 3 teenage girls in the house and I'm like, oh, I really hope that doesn't become a part of my problem over the next few years.
You were a bit of a daredevil.
It was so much fun. And it was something that my brothers did as well. So, you know, I'm the little sister or whatever, but it was something that we actually all enjoyed together. And my brothers always had the nicer cars, naturally, being that bit older, and they had their own kind of car club themselves and the personalised plates and sacking, you know, what we call sacking out the cars, but dropping the springs so that the cars are sitting lower and you just I don't know. Anyway, there was
that is so sweet. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
It actually reminded me of the time we did nothing as drastic as that back in India, but my mum had a fancy car as part of her work. And one day I think she had gone out or something, but we got the keys to it.
Yeah.
And we pushed the car. There were about 6 of us teenagers. We pushed the car slowly outside of we had what we called a compound, a 2-story building, and we were on the ground floor. And we pushed the car outside. And then when it was far enough so that nobody else would hear in the building, we started it. And we were like 6, didn't have a license, nothing. It was, when you think about it now, it was bad. We were terrible.
Yeah, and then because there's a thing, like you'd hear the police and there would be like 5 or 6 police cars turn up and it was just bolting. Like everyone would just disappear. It was just quite incredible. God. But, you know, we were typically, there was so much going on that was illegal in those spaces, right? So it's just
such a lovely memory. Yeah,
I know, and it's weird, right? Because then you would reflect and go, oh, who got caught this time or who this or whatever. And that was the stories of the
part
town.
Of the excitement.
Yeah, absolutely. And then typically if you were the one that got caught, then you had to become the spotter. And like, anyway, it was a lot of fun. I don't even know how it was created. I don't know if it still exists anymore.
When did you last go back to your place of where you grew up?
Last year.
Okay.
Yeah. So have made a conscious effort over the time that I've been here because I moved here when I was 19. So I've made a conscious effort to go back where we can. Naturally, as the kids have got older and there's more of them.
And is it the same? And how is it changed, the neighborhood?
Look, I mean, I would describe the amount of the memory that I have of the Mount from when I was a child was like Yamba in New South Wales. So that kind of small coastal town that had, you know, your stripper shops and whatnot. So that's my memory of it. But it was also the holiday destination of the country. So throughout summer, you'd just be inundated with holiday makers and then they would just disappear. So my memory of the Mount is very different to what it is now. And I guess like everywhere, you know, it's
more
it was like it was a little secret spot when we were growing up, but obviously people have got to know too much about it. And so it's population-wise is significantly different. But I guess the core substance of what the Mount was for me still feels the same when I go back.
Beautiful memories.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I got really excited. Took me back. You very vividly described that drag racing thing.
Oh, we did do it for a few years. So
what a memory. So then at the very young age of 19, you decided to move countries and you moved to Australia, and then from here you went to Canada. And tell us a bit about that. What was the motivation for you to leave to come to Australia? Why did you go to Canada? Any challenges?
Yeah.
Any support system?
The motivation to go is, it's a hard one to describe because I look back at it now and think that the reasons I did it at the time are different to the reasons I think I did it now. In the first instance, when I left school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had friends going to uni, I had friends going straight into the workforce, and, you know, Dad had said, did I want to take over the family business and go and do pharmacy? And it just wasn't really something that I thought I wanted to do. And I guess I didn't know where I was heading or what the direction was for me. But what I did know is I wanted to see the world. And my mum's sister is 12 years younger than her, and we know her as Auntie Uli. And I always admired her and the travel that she used to do, and she's just the freedom that she had. And I guess when I was a late teenager, she had moved to Canada, and she's kind of was settling down with her now husband. And I think I was just like, why don't I just go and see Arnie? Like, you know, she'll be happy to see me. I don't think she knows that she was such an influence, but she was cool. She was funky. She was a little different. And, you know, I guess in comparison to her siblings, they're a bit more straighty 180. And she kind of was, I don't know, there was just something really admiring about her. I was like, if she can do it, I can do it. So I guess
free spirit kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I wasn't confident that I was going to be the same free spirit. Like I didn't necessarily see it like that, but decided to come to Australia as a bit of a stepping stone, start to kind of feel what it's going to be like to live away from home. Like I was at the decision of going, okay, this is what I think I'd like to do. I was still living at home. So, you know, I moved out and was out for about a year before I moved over here. And then I guess for me, this was only going to be a couple of months stop. And then I was going to go to Canada. But in that couple of months stop, I met Chris. And Chris was halfway through his apprenticeship as an aircon mechanic. So it didn't really make sense for us to go to Canada. So I chose to stay. And then as soon as he finished his apprenticeship, we travelled around Australia and we went to Canada together.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your plans changed because you met, and Chris is your husband.
It is, yes.
Who you married.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how long did you live in Australia before you went to Canada?
I moved here in November 2005, I think, maybe 2006. And we were over in Canada. Tasman's born 2010. So we were in Canada for 2009. And then we were there for the Winter Olympics at the beginning of 2010.
So 2 years here and then you went off to Canada. What was it like for you in those early 2 years when you came here? You didn't know anyone except Chris.
I feel like there's no such thing as feeling alone when you're doing something so new and fresh, if that makes sense.
Excited.
So for me, I knew that I was going into an environment where I didn't know anyone. And I remember the first Christmas, I'd only been here about 5 or 6 weeks. And that was a weird sensation because the lead up to Christmas, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine. We're just going to have a picnic down at South Bank and a bit of an orphan's Christmas sort of thing. Of people I'd met who were also living over here but didn't have local family. But I remember on actual Christmas Day feeling very isolated and going, this wasn't the fun part I expected. But overall, I mean,
especially because you've come from this great childhood. Yeah.
But I guess because I was, in the age space where we had social media too, right? So I was still communicating with all of my school friends. One of my school friends had come over and was living with me as well. And then she went back and someone else came back. So I'd still had a little bit of a connection. And then I met Chris so quickly because he was a flatmate of one of my brother's friends. So then I moved down to the coast and I took a job down there. And so then Chris totally incorporated me in his friendship circle. So I didn't really have a long time to feel isolated, if that makes sense.
New relationship, new place, discovering people. And you've come from this really strong, you've got a good sense of self-esteem and security because you've had this great childhood. So it's you're kind of equipped to be in, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like I think my parents were a little bit worried when I met Chris of the sense of maybe I won't come back. It all kind of, I moved in with him very quickly, but it was just kind of the way it happened in the sense of moving down there. I moved in with a friend down the street that he introduced me to, and I'd lived there for about a week and a half, and then his flatmate and the lady I'd moved in decided that they were moving out together, and then I couldn't take over the lease because I was making $300 a week. You know, I didn't want to commit to a 12-month. Chris then had a spare room. So, you know, I think 5 weeks after we met, we were living together. And we've lived together ever since.
Wow.
So I think that fear for mum and dad of like, this is all seems to be moving really quickly, like what's happening, you know, I've not even met this man. And I mean, if the Chris that exists today is a very different Chris, but from back then, like when I first met Chris, his hair was down to like halfway down his back.
Oh, long hair.
Yeah, long hair. He was a big surfy dude, like not big in structural like size, but like just totally into the surfing side of things. And he had a 1963 like windowless EJ panel van, so like real rough around the edges sort of thing, but such a wholesome human being. And but from mum and dad's perspective, when I'd send them a photo, like he's just so I think for them, they were just like, oh, okay, this is all happening. And then before you know it, I'm like, oh, we're moving to Canada, and off we go. And
it would have been frightening for a parent.
Yeah. So, you know.
Because you're so far away as well.
Correct.
I'm just putting myself in their boots.
Yeah. So we went off and we travelled around Australia, and so we did that for 3 months, and then that was great in the caravan. Best thing I could ever suggest for someone to do.
I missed. So you went to Canada?
Before we went to Canada, we traveled around Australia in a 1970s Datsun kind of Winnebago looking thing.
Right.
And we just decided to do that to kind of get the feelers of traveling together. It was such a great experience.
That's wisdom.
Yeah. And the cool thing with that though is because we were so young, like we were in our late teens and early 20s, the people we met, there were so many great nomads, people just traveling after retirement. And so the conversations we were having were so awesome and so wholesome, and having conversations with people about where they are in life and the things that they could reflect on and everything like that, the weird community that exists on the road. And then you'd meet the same people at different destinations, and you'd get to the next spot and they're there, or you're like, where are you going next? Like, oh, we're going to be 5 weeks, we'll be in Darwin. And it's just like, it's 200 kilometers from here. Like, why 5 weeks? We're making it in a day because we've got 2.5 months to do the travel, but they're doing it for 2.5 years. So there's that weird sort of connection point that you have that you have to try. You have to be open to having these conversations with people. But we found that the older demographic of travelers were far more engaging with us than the people that we met that were our age. So it was it's a really cool place. And then we had already booked our tickets to Canada. We knew we were going, so we had a deadline that we had to be back. So we arrived
That's amazing that you could do that trip together as late teen in 19, 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
And engage with these older people who are also traveling. I think they say, first of all, when you travel with somebody, you get to know them on a completely new level. Yeah. Which was great wisdom for you to do that before you went to Canada. And then to interact at that young age, to interact with older people, that's wisdom again, because most younger people want to hang out with younger people kind of thing. But it's beautiful. And I think that would have still come from your childhood again, Lauren,
Yeah, I'd assume so. Of just being comfortable to talk to people. And, but I think it's a personality thing as well. I think it's, but I definitely think so much of where I am now and the decisions I've made and the risks I've taken have come with the fact that I know I have a strong backing. If something was to go wrong, I know I could pick up the phone and and ask for help and know it would be there.
Yes, and we often take that. I know I took that for granted. I was in a very dysfunctional marriage for many years, and in our last few years, we went to counseling, a lady for counseling, and she saw my ex-husband and myself separately, and she asked him questions, and then she asked me, do you know much about your husband's childhood? And I said, I do, and she said, well, and she asked me, if you were in trouble, do you know your parents would come for you like that? And I said, I didn't think about it. I just know they will. And they did, because when my son had asthma, mom and dad were here. Like within a week, they'd flown and came to support me. And she said, well, your husband doesn't know that. And I thought, wow. And many of us take that for granted.
Yeah, they do.
That you've got the security of the love of your parents, like a trampoline to fall back on. And that's a huge thing. A huge thing for our mental health, for our maturity as adults. So thank you for sharing that. It really threw back a thing for me. So then you go to Canada. Tell us a little bit about what happened in Canada.
I had a lot of fun in Canada. For me, Canada was just, probably the best trip of my life, in the sense of we just did so much. We crammed so much in. We had every intention to go and work in the snowfields.
In those snowfields?
In the snowfields, yeah.
What's
like
that?
Like working at the bottom of the lifts or doing,
Doing what?
Like helping people onto the lifts at the bottom of the ski fields where they go up on the,
right, yes.
Or like working in the shop, like on the hiring shop or the cafes up there. But really wanted to be, I guess, on the mountains, really part into that kind of ski and snowboarding aspects. But of course, the year we went was the year that there was really no snowfall. So we had the Winter Olympics in Vancouver in February 2010, and they were basically making man-made snow because there was such limited snow for the Winter Olympics. They actually couldn't do a lot of the events like they were meant to. So we actually ended up going back into roles that we were doing already here in Australia. So Chris went and did, I guess, the heating side of the aircon, because again, it's much colder over there. You got to do both. And I went back into insurance over there as well. So we dabbled in hospitality, but ended up taking much better paying jobs full time, and then we would just make the most of the weekends. Turns out it rains a lot in November, and on Boxing Day I found out I was pregnant.
Wow.
And so that changed a few things. Yeah. So I was 22, Chris was 26. And we found out we were pregnant, and so we were planning to go to Banff for New Year's. We had a whole lot of friends coming over from Australia, so I pretended to drink that night. Chris and I we had a shower, and we're like, what are we going to do? The only place we could talk about what we had found out that day is, in the bathroom, because we had so many friends with us. And I guess we then had to make a plan, and where were we heading? Of course, it was a life-changing thing to find out.
Did you tell anybody?
At that point, we didn't.
Okay.
No. I don't think we knew what our plan was. The discussion was never that we wouldn't proceed to have her, or her now. But at the time, it was a shock.
Of course.
We weren't planning on having a baby.
Not that young.
Not that young. Yeah, no, we're definitely planning on having a baby at some point, but not that young. And, we were planning our next trip. Where were we going? What was the next destination? All of that sort of thing. And then also, like, we're from two different countries. Like, where are we going? Like, what's our plan from here?
Yeah.
And, Chris was making really good money over there. I guess I was too. We had another year on his visa. Chris was a real homebody, though. He was really missing Australia at that point, and I think he was quite ready to come back. So we ended up coming back here at 28 weeks pregnant. We arrived on the Wednesday. We told everyone we were having a welcome home party at Chris's parents' house, and we got married instead. So
nobody knew that you were going to get
There was
married?
a couple of people who knew, so I had to tell my parents, because obviously they were coming from New Zealand.
And how did what was their response?
When we were getting married?
That when you told them?
So, combination of things. It took them a bit of time to, I guess, get not cope, they were fine, but just around like taking it in that we were pregnant.
Yeah.
The last time they had seen us, Chris and I were pretty rough around the edges. Mum and Dad had stayed with us for a few weeks, and I think it was all a bit too much, and we'd had a big fight in front of them. And, so I don't think that they thought we were in a position where we were going to make the right decision around, or did it feel like it was the right decision? And, what do you do, right? It's just a way of life. But they were a bit worried and concerned around the impact that having a baby was going to have for Chris and I, and were we in the right space to do so? But I guess there wasn't an option, so it was full steam ahead. And from the moment then on, the acceptance has been incredible, and the support's been incredible. And we kind of in some ways followed Chris's parents' footsteps. So they fell pregnant with Chris unplanned before they were married as well at 22. Irony is quite funny, actually. Now we're just following the footsteps for them. And I think Chris's grandfather said to Chris's dad to make it, an honest woman out of her and get married while they're pregnant.
Right.
So that was for Tina and Mike's scenario, Chris's parents. But I think we kind of decided, well, hey, we want the same thing. Like, why wouldn't we? We're committing to having a child together.
Yeah.
It makes sense for us to commit to one another as well.
Yeah.
We're making a lifetime choice here to have a child together.
Yeah.
Let's get married too. And it was exciting. It was great. And, what was even cooler, I think,
didn't get forced into it, but got fast-tracked.
Fast-tracked, 100%. Was Chris the person I was marrying? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Were we planning on getting married that year? Probably not. But hey,
definitely not having a child that soon.
No, but it's just the way it plays out. So we were really fortunate that one of Chris's parents' friends is a marriage celebrant of all occupations, and she happened to be coming to Canada. So you got to give 30 days notice to get married in Australia. So she came over and bought the paperwork that we had to sign. And
so this is back in Australia.
we were still in Canada. Yeah, so she came to Canada. She just happened to be doing a 3-week cruise or something through Alaska and was coming via Vancouver. So she bought the paperwork so we could submit to this Queensland government that we were getting married 30 days later.
Yeah.
So that was a cool process because we really got to keep it secret, which meant for me, for someone who didn't want to have, I don't like really being on display, and that I'm not confident in being everyone knowing everything. I didn't really want a big wedding or anything like that. So it was quite cool to have we were planning a secret wedding, and very limited people knew about it, and we were doing it from a different country. So we were able to kind of do what we needed to do, but not be questioned of what the plans were. And I still remember, so my best friend Lauren came over for the wedding and my brother came over from the wedding. And, so the people that needed to know knew from a travel perspective. Chris's grandparents were living in Sydney, so they came up. But Chris's immediate family didn't have any idea. We told Mike and Tina when they picked us up from the airport on the Wednesday, we thought just out of courtesy, given it was happening at their house, we should let them know that we're getting married. But because Mike he gets so excited about things and wants to tell the world, we knew that he would tell everybody we were getting married. So we were just like, we've got to keep it suppressed for as long as we possibly can. And so the cool thing was when we got married, no one knew we were doing it. Everyone just came dressed as casual as if they were coming to a welcome home party, kind of an engagement party too. I think we had advertised it as. And then halfway through it, I disappeared, got changed. Chris disappeared, got changed. Bonnie, who was the marriage celebrant, just said to everybody, we're going to play a game and split kind of who was here for me, who was here for Chris, and then basically said they just formed the aisle and we got married in Chris's parents' backyard.
Fun. That would have been such excitement in that house that day. Wow.
100%. I mean, call it a shotgun wedding, whatever you want to call it. But it was the best day. And we had such a great time.
And on a shoestring budget.
Yeah, absolutely.
Compared to what any other wedding would cost.
We were coming back from overseas. Neither of us had a job.
Brilliant.
We were having a baby in 12 weeks. Yeah. We didn't even know we were going to be living. Yeah. So, there was lots of unknown at that point. Yeah. But again, I guess when you come from such supportive backgrounds, we knew that we didn't want to have to rely on anyone naturally, but we knew we had people to fall back on in the sense of like if we needed assistance or we didn't know where we were going to stay and what that was going to be would be
That's
sort of
so good.
Yeah.
I know we've got a time scale that we've got to keep to, so I'm just going to move to the next question. Sure. I want to ask you so many questions, but I'm going to ask you them in private now. Yeah. About especially about you when you came back. Okay, can we touch on it really quickly? When you came back to Australia and you had your first child, what was her name again? Tasman. And I remember you saying to me before that you felt a little bit unsupported in terms of having a child in another country. And what did you do to get support for yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say I was unsupported. I would just say I felt lonely in the process. Okay. I had never lived in Brisbane. So Chris had his entire family and his school friends locally. And the first time I had lived in Brisbane was when I was 28 weeks pregnant. So I didn't have a friendship group or anything to fall back in. So it was the loneliness attached to it. In hindsight, do I look back and think I had postnatal depression? Yeah, probably. Was I afraid, to be honest, in the paperwork that you get when you go to the doctors out of fear of, her being removed or whatever? Sure. I was never concerned that I was going to hurt her or hurt myself, but there was definitely times of loneliness and knowing who to reach out to and knowing that I was younger, I guess, as well. When my parents had us, being in your early 20s was normal, but I joined a mother's group, which was awesome. That came through the hospital. I guess they triage people. If you don't have local family, they kind of put you in a category and say, hey, why don't you go to this mother's group? So made some really great connections through that. And then I guess I put an advertisement on Gumtree looking for local young parents, young mums wanted to hang out.
And that's the initiative you took. You put an ad out to try and get
that was one option. Yeah. And, I'm still.
That might have been the start of your community building.
Yeah, 100%. And like one of my best friends now, Jordan, like she is still well and truly up there with me. Lovely. And, we're talking 12 years ago, 13 years ago now. Yeah. And then for whatever weird reason, my neighbor was a Zumba teacher. So I thought, hey, let's become a Zumba teacher. And I started teaching Zumba in the park for mums and bubs. And again, like you start meeting people, you're all in the same space. You're forced to kind of be together. Sure, it might have started as a convenience friendship, but then you just blossom from there. And then, like you said, the introduction, I've always been a big believer in, connection and community-based aspects. So I just got on the boards of things. I was very involved in the PNC and, for the kindergartens and the schools and the fate coordinators and all of that sort of stuff that comes with it. Yeah. Where, sure, you're taking on a role that needs to be fulfilled, but you're also meeting different people in an environment where it doesn't feel forced. Yeah, it's hard making friends as adults.
Correct. And I think that's a big one for people to take away is that if you're feeling down and lonely or whatever, sometimes most people are not dreaming that you're down and lonely. Right. And if you have the ability to to step up, ask, join groups, volunteer. So many things that you can do. Start a little, Zumba class. I don't know, whatever. But
selling doTERRA oils for a while there. Like,
yes,
you do whatever you can to kind of
things
get it.
that you can do.
Yeah,
but it's got to be initiated by yourself.
Yeah,
if you want it fast, because most people are busy in their own lives, doing their own things. So.
In some ways you have to be vulnerable, right? Because you don't know these people, and you're telling your version of your story and whatever, and in hope.
Yeah.
I still remember, that first coffee date, and we just headed off. There was 4 of us. None of us really had any local friends that had children. Like, they were locals themselves, but their friends hadn't had children yet, but they were younger. And, sure, we had things in common, like box ticking, the age, the fact that we'd had a child, all of these things. But then we got to know each other as people.
Yeah.
And then from there, friendships blossoms. Yeah.
So good. What has been... I know you've had so far it's been a pretty amazing life. A few challenges here and there, but not any that you could not navigate given the great childhood that you've had. What has been, or have you had any other real challenging experiences in your life that you'd like to share?
Yeah, definitely. It's instant change. 4 years ago, my brother committed suicide. And that has been the most, what are the words? Just heartbreaking, distraught, emotionally draining thing to ever happen. And it has changed. I feel like we have the life before Ryan died and the life after Ryan died. And that applies to everybody that knew Ryan, including me and all my family. So, yeah. Huge.
So sorry.
Huge. Yeah.
This was the younger of the two?
Yes. I mean, they're 6 minutes apart, being identical twins, but no, it was the older of the two. Yeah.
And, Well, so you were close to Ryan, weren't you?
Yeah.
Ryan?
Yeah. Ryan was the teddy bear of our family. He was So Scott and I are a bit more stubborn and a bit more stern in the way we are. And Ryan was the teddy bear. Ryan was the one who would bring us all together. He was the one that would, shirt off your back sort of thing. And he'd check in with us all the time. And he'd, I don't think any words that I could say would describe him in the light that he deserves. But yeah, he was an awesome human being. Yeah.
How have you dealt with it? This was 4 years ago. How have you dealt with it, and how has your life changed?
Look, I mean, with any grief, I think it comes in waves, as the song says. But that when he died it was really hard because it was COVID. So we were it was January 9th, 2021. So we were coming out of COVID, but we were in lockdown over here. And you couldn't travel. So I couldn't go back to New Zealand or be part of it. It came as a complete shock. I don't think any of us were expecting it to happen. And I felt really isolated because the people that love me and know me and wanted to be here for me, like physically here, were not the people that I wanted to necessarily be grieving with because my heart was over here and I couldn't go, and then vice versa, everyone over in New Zealand who was there and supporting my family. And like, again, the support was incredible on both sides. Like, I can't fault. Everyone was amazing. But when you go through something like that, you naturally fall back to your base.
Yes.
And I couldn't go there.
Yes.
And from a support network, I felt like I was letting my family down because naturally you want to be present. But everyone who cared and loved Ryan over there that wasn't a relative didn't know me. So I kind of felt a little bit isolated in the sense of they're all checking in with the family, but yet I'm not a family member, if that makes sense, just solely on being in a different country. Yeah. And then the reverse of that, so many people showed up for me here and it was incredible in the support. But like I said, I felt like I really valued it and I appreciated it, but they weren't the people I wanted to hug. They weren't the people I wanted to, sit and cry and talk memories and all of that sort of stuff. And then to watch Ryan's funeral online was the hardest thing I've ever done. That was huge. Because I knew it was like watching a movie where I knew every character. I knew the storyline. I knew everything that was going to happen. But I had to do it as if I was a fly on the wall. It was really hard. Yeah.
So sorry.
Sorry for
No, that's not. It's a natural response.
Like I said, like we had an amazing childhood. I don't know where it came from. I don't, answers are hard. Like, how do you get answers from someone who's not here to answer them? But I guess in the way of dealing with it and working through it is I've become way more vulnerable. Like I talk about how I feel. I talk with people. I ask people bigger questions now. I actually care. Like, I mean, I've always cared and I've always been someone who has, but maybe more at a surface level. But, that first year I was just like, screw it. I'm opening up my business. I'm doing it. I'm signing a lease. I'm getting an office. Off we go, right? Do I think that at the time I was ready for it? Probably not, but I'm so grateful I did it. I'm so grateful I was just like, screw it, let's go. Because it's what kept me busy. Yeah. Like Chris was incredible, like, again, carrying it through. But when you're raising kids, life just has to keep going on. And I feel like the hard thing with suicide is coming up with a reason of why it did. If you lose someone to cancer or you lose someone to a car accident or you lose someone, something that makes sense somehow, it's still awful, don't get me wrong, but at least you can have some clarity of why. When someone commits suicide, and I hate the word commit because I don't feel like it's a choice in the moment, but when someone follows through with that decision, I still take it as the brain failed them in the moment. Just like
say that again.
Their brain failed them in the moment, right? In the sense of someone can have a heart attack and die from a heart attack and we say that the heart failed, or someone can die from liver failure and the liver failed. Why can't we say that the brain failed? It's still a part of our body. It's still a defining aspect of who he is. My brother was a great human being. He should definitely still be here. It doesn't make any sense that he's not. But for whatever reason in the moment what happened, and which is where when I talk about Ryan, I don't like talking about the day that he died because that's not who he was. He was everything else for that kind of 36 years in the lead up. He was all of those amazing qualities and he was an incredibly amazing human being. There was 700 odd people at his funeral in New Zealand, which is even more frustrating and alone, right? Because here I am sitting in my living room watching it on Zoom because I can't go. God. But yet they didn't have any restrictions on funerals in New Zealand by this stage. So they could have as many people as long as they were registered to go.
Thank God that was at least
I know, right? Yeah. But again, like, how is that fair that my entire family is sitting in the front row of a funeral that I can't go to because I happen to live 3 hours in a different country?
Oh, you'd have felt absolutely miserable.
But again, when you're in it, you just kind of go and you keep working through it, right? It is what it is. You don't have a choice. I could have gone and got whatever that thing was and go into isolation for 2 weeks, but I'm not going to leave Chris at home with the 3 kids, go into isolation for 2 weeks, make everyone hold the funeral for basically a month so that I could get to it, for my own personal gain. Sure, I would have loved to have been able to be present, but not at the impact of everybody else. To kind of get through it, there's been a lot of talk. I went to grief counselling. I found that was a big help. I initially went to grief counselling with the mindset of, how do I help my parents through this? How do I help my brother through this? How do I help my nieces and my own children through it? Rather than how do I help myself? Because I thought I was okay, right? And I think most people do when you're going through it. But unpacking all of it in support of other people, you then naturally have to go through it yourself. And so big advocate of grief counselling. It was a massive impact. And then for someone who is extremely social, I isolated a lot socially. And then
after
well, because Jackson was starting prep, so every day you're going up and everyone's getting excited because the kids are just starting school. My brother had died 2 weeks earlier. We're rocking up to prep, and I don't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want someone to say, "Hey, how was your holidays?" Like, They were terrible, right? Worst holidays I've ever had. But I didn't want to take away the joy of the kids starting prep and all of that. But life has to go on and you have to keep moving and you have to keep doing these things. So, yeah, went through a real big stage of isolation, went through a big...
Would you say that was the way you grieved, Lauren? Being isolated, staying in isolation? Was that a form,
to begin with, yeah. And then I guess in May was the decision, right, I'm opening up, let's go.
The business.
The business, let's do that. And that felt like a big decision, but I'm like, life's short.
Yeah.
You know, this could be me. I could be gone tomorrow. Like, let's go. And I just said to Chris, I'm like, it's now or never. Like, when do I do this?
Yeah.
Like, I've wanted it for such a long time. So then, you know, with anything, starting a business and getting a new branding out there and getting aware and people watching the change and some supportive, some supporters, some not so supportive, you know, really engaged in that and honed in on it and, went back to the basics of what's important in life. And that was Chris and it's the kids and, you know, where do we go to from that?
Yeah, life sometimes throws you a real spinner and it just kind of brings you to a halt.
Totally.
And lets you see what's really important right in front of you.
Yeah.
And by the sounds of it, you've got your head screwed on really well in the sense that you did do your grieving in the way that worked for you. Mm-hmm. And then you took your life to another level in terms of doing what you wanted to do, love what you've always wanted to do, so no wasting any more time. But I love what you said before about starting to be more open and authentic in your sharing and in your ways of being and really it kind of forces you to start caring. I mean, like you can't help it because you start caring more about people as well. And
100%. I mean, I'm in an occupation where the perception is that we're not authentic and that we
as
are.
In real estate.
As in real estate. Yeah. You know, I mean, I guess I'm in the industry. I've been in the industry for 10 odd years, but yet pretty much every single agent I know, we're actually all decent human beings, but the perception of who we are as being, you know, I don't even know the words that people use to describe us and I probably don't want to reflect on them, but that whole, I guess, narrative that's attached to the occupation already comes with it. But then when you go through something that's so impactful and literally changes you overnight of who you are as a person, I never went into real estate necessarily going, hey, I can make great money, let's go. It was always about how can I help people? How can I create a great experience for them? All of that momentum. How can I help people get to the next steps in their real estate journey to get the life they want to have. So whether that's upsizing, downsizing, whatever it might be. But that was my core reasoning to go into it. And also to challenge that stigma attached to agents. I guess since Ryan's died, I've just gone into it full-heartedly and gone, I don't take business just to take business. If we don't align as client and agent, I will politely say, I really appreciate it, but we're not going to be working together. And that's for I guess a tirade of reasons, but mainly around I want to ensure that everyone that works with me gets me in its entirety. You get one challenging client that you don't align with, it takes the mental load, you know,
of course,
away from everywhere.
Of course.
And that's for me as a parent of 4 children. That's for me as a wife. It's me as a friend. It's me as an agent to other people. Like there's so many more facets of me than just my occupation. And so coming back to being open, I've eliminated people that weren't bringing me, like weren't adding to my cup. I started to really reflect of who fills my cup, who takes away from my cup.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's like to incorporate that in your business dealings.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that because business at any cost is an old thing. Like you should be doing business with people that align with your values because business is a huge part of your life. If you're running a business, it just swallows you up kind of thing, you know. I've been in business for 22 years. And so if you're going to work that hard, might as well work with people whom you enjoy being with as well. And there's a values alignment that needs to happen. So tell me, what do you look for in your clients? Like, what kind of clients would you like? Would I be an ideal client?
Look, I mean, I have been to your house, and it's very well presented, I must say.
Oh, right. So how do you choose your like who would you knock back?
Well, look, it goes a combination of both ways, right? So naturally, people gravitate towards people. So the invitation actually comes from the client first. most of the time. So we obviously are out actively looking for business, but I would say 95% of my business is referral based. So people are coming to me that they've heard from someone or whatever. So honestly, most of the time I attract people who want to work with me. And naturally, if they want to work with me, I'm going to want to work with them.
Yeah.
The hardest part of what I do is building trust. Always has been, always will be. And that's trust with my sellers and the trust with my buyers. So if an owner's not prepared to disclose what's wrong with the place, if they're not prepared to present a property in its best light, they're not prepared, like there's lots of things that come down to sure, you make my job easier by presenting it well, don't get me wrong, but what you do if you don't disclose to me problems or I'm the one who has to combat that, and I'm typically the one that gets blamed. I'm fortunate that I come from an insurance background before I went into real estate, and I did a lot of defect assessments working in the insurance world. So I can pick up on quite a bit of things, but when I'm having a conversation with a client, if we don't align in basic morals, typically they either won't choose me or I won't choose them.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
so honesty is a big one.
Yeah. Like I sell
respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I sell houses, right? That is my one job that I do. I sell houses, but the actual agreement for you to work with me is I'm selling myself as a service.
Yeah.
The house will actually sell regardless of who sells it.
Yeah.
But who's the best choice to do the work to get you the best outcome? And so that's the conversation we need to have. But if we're not going to align in the way it needs to be presented, and we're not going to align on where value is, if you're not prepared to listen to me from day one where I think your house is going to sell for, what makes me think that you're going to listen to me at day 22 when I'm telling you this is the best we're going to get? So if we don't align up front, that's where I'm going to say, look, I don't think this is actually going to work.
I love it. I love that you are actually deciding the client, of course, who you're going to work with, but you're deciding the experience you want to have.
Great.
Every experience that you want to have, that you interact with your clients. And that's all, that adds to your life experience, which given what happened with your brother, you're making every experience in life count, whether it's business, personal, family, friends, whatever. So that's
just making more informed
advice.
decisions.
Really a great tip for anyone that's listening. And for me, I love that. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Lauren. I know whenever, we're on a community Facebook group together. And whenever I've seen anybody ask for something, is anybody interested in helping out with this or helping out with that? But that's to do with community. You're always putting your hand up. So now I know you're on the Maruka, the Clubhouse board.
I am, yeah.
You are? Right. Yeah, because we were at the AGM. And then I saw somebody else talking about a neighbor gathering, and Lauren says, I'll be there to help. Is anything happening with that?
I have not, but actually hasn't followed through, to be honest with you, but yes.
Yeah. Well, you can come to my neighbor gathering. I'm having one.
And we've got some sort of sing-along coming too, don't we? So
yes. But how do you, given you've started a new business, it's only 2.5 years old or whatever. I know what it takes to start and run a business. How do you balance running a big business for children, putting your hand up to give back to community? How do you do that? Is there a recipe, a secret?
Yeah, look, honestly, I probably only say it's been this year that I've started to master the balance. A lot of it has been flying at the seat of my pants and hope for the best. I'm I've been a big person that says yes first before thinking about the actual.
You're looking at somebody who does the same.
Totally, and try to figure out how I'm going to make it work. I guess what I would say is I've got my balance right at work. So if you were to look at the business volume that we do, I have too many staff. But where my staff are an incredible support means that I can do school pickup if I need to do school pickup. I can, take a Saturday off a month. I can do those things where I can be present at home and be there because I have the support of the team. And so when I have conversations with clients up front, it's not me you're employing, it's the four of us.
Yeah.
So this person's going to be doing this job, this person's going to be doing this job. And that's defined really clearly up front. So crazy to say that I'm a yes person, but creating boundaries and getting clearer on what's important has made a massive difference of where I say yes and no. It's actually quite a powerful, it's only something I've learned over the last couple of years, but saying no is really powerful. I've said yes to everything, and then I feel like I have to lie my way out of the reasons why I can't do something, or I get to 2 days beforehand and I'm like, oh, how am I going to do this? I've said yes to 7 things. Can't possibly be at all of them. Which one's going to have a stomach ache? Which one's going to have a migraine? I'm trying to find ways out. Whereas now, people respect you more when you say no.
Absolutely.
And
you're doing yourself a favor, but you're also doing other people a favor, because then whoever you're going to say yes to, those ones are going to get your whole, and they're going to get your whole self.
Yes.
And they're not going to get a half.
Correct.
And
so you end up getting a better outcome for everybody.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I let people down if I'm like, no, I can't. So I've stopped doing that.
Yeah.
Because that, even though I went in it with every great intention, if I can't do it, I can't do it. But I'm saying yes more at home. I'm being actively trying to be more present this year. So Chris and I are both taking Fridays off. That's something that we have only started this year, but it means that we get to have some time together. Like you say, he's got his own business too. This isn't just me having a business and he's sitting at home. Like, he's got his own business to run too. And if we want to be present for the kids, we've got sports every Saturday and every Sunday. So I have to work Saturdays. That's a guarantee. So Chris does all the Saturdays, but I want to be present for those Sundays. I want to be part of that. So I guess where I've started to make some changes, and I hope people don't start calling me asking for lots of cash, but starting to go, hey, like I might not be physically able to be present, but is there something that I can offer from a donation perspective that like that's not my favorable.
Yeah.
But if I know that I can't physically show up, I still want to support that space. But I can't possibly just give everyone everything either.
Yeah.
But okay, well this year, and I've tried to go, this year I'm going to be physically present in 4 community-based events, right? So 1 a quarter is what I'm aiming for.
Don't forget the Maruka Block Party.
I haven't forgotten. I'm co-emceeing that, aren't
Yes,
I?
you are.
So no, I haven't forgotten about that. But so doing the 4 main events that my time is physically present. And then when it comes to like the supporting the local sports and whatnot, it's more like an in-kind donation of a prize for an activity, or it might be a cash donation or whatnot. But I've opted to spread things further, but do less for each. And in the end, I do less, but more people gain. And that's
great.
Yeah, and that seems
you
to be
found a
working.
nice, good balance between your presence at a particular community thing, but also your presence at home being, and that's obviously the more important one.
Totally.
But you can still give back through a donation and then be present at a few others. So
I can't see me.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I can't see me ever not being part of that community aspect. It is.
Well, you're hardwired because you grew up in that kind of an environment back in Mount Maunganui, and so it's not an option kind of thing. Yeah. So, thank you so much, Lauren. You've just been absolutely amazing. You have inspired me, and I'm sure many others that are going to listen through all your beautiful life experiences. But I think the one that really stood out for me was the advice that you gave us all with your brother passing. So thank you for being here.
You're
Thank
right.
you for coming in. And I will see you at the Maruka Block Party.
Yeah. Got Shed Choir tonight. You coming?
Oh no, you're going to see me at my
that as
dancing
well.
CEO event.
Oh no, I'm coming to that too.
I've got a job for you actually.
Oh no. Okay.
You're going to be you're going to be the cheerleading leader.
Oh wow.
Now, are you going to say yes or no?
Look, I'm going to think about it. I'm going to come back to you.
That was a test. That was a test to see whether you were going to say yes or no, and whether you're going to respect your boundaries.
No. Look, I'll check my calendar and I'll come back to you.
Thank you. I'm going to end on this topic. There's a really lovely song that you can look up. It's by a lady called Carolyn Drucker, and it is "My New Yes Is No."
Okay.
Yeah,
So like Orange is the New Black, but in singing.
Yeah. Just one last question. Oh, and for all of our listeners, if you've loved this podcast, which I have loved just listening to Lauren, make sure you hit the subscribe button, put a comment. We're on YouTube. You can share whatever you got for yourself. If there's anything you'd like to tell us, how you'd like any other types of stories or anything you'd like, give us some of your views on what we've spoken about today. We'd love that. And thank you for listening.